This is the definition of summative assessment as used by Hampton City Schools. It's the assessment at the end of a predetermined period of learning that measures to what extent students have mastered the content and skills. So note that this definition, just like our formative assessment definition, is less about the type of assessment and more about how the assessment is being used. Therefore, don't think of summative assessment as always meaning a paper and pencil test. It can also be a performance assessment or even a less formal type of assessment. It could be a student internship or a project. The main thing is that it is used at the end of that predetermined period of learning, and the main purpose of these types of assessments is to measure student mastery. To that end, let's think about some common ways that you assess students in order to report their levels of mastery. Pause the video to think or discuss, and then resume when you are ready. Here are some examples of assessments you might have named. Pause the video for a moment and think about or discuss the pros and cons of each. One of the biggest requirements for assessments in Hampton City Schools is that we aim to make assessments that provide reliable or consistent results that allow us to make valid inferences about students' levels of mastery. You've probably heard these concepts described before as validity and reliability. Here's another way to think about reliability and validity. We see that the first target is considered reliable but not valid. This means that we may get the same results consistently, but the results don't allow us to make a valid inference of the thing we actually want to measure. So consider, for instance, measuring the size of someone's shoe with a tape measure in order to determine how far they walked that day. We may get the same measure every time, but the size of the shoe has nothing to do with how far someone has walked. So examples of this in education may be things like mathematics tests that actually measure reading comprehension, or a social studies project that weights neatness more heavily than content usage. In some cases, assessments are neither reliable nor valid. So imagine that we are trying to use a scale with a faulty battery to measure someone's overall health. In this case, we're going to get lots of inconsistent or unreliable results, and it's also not allowing us to make valid inferences about someone's overall health because weight alone cannot be a measure of overall health. Therefore, what we are looking for are assessments that are both reliable and produce those valid inferences. We want to have those consistent results that allow us to make accurate inferences about what our students actually know, understand, and can do. Here's an example of what you might see in the unit plans. Under Checks for Understanding, our curriculum writers provide a variety of ways to formatively assess students' knowledge. And under the Assess for Mastery, or the summative assessment part, our writers provide examples of assessments that can be used to report student mastery at the end of the predetermined learning period.